amazing human beings. I'm serious. That I have met in my life, and that is Professor Joshua Cooper. I mean, it's been so much fun having him stay at my house and just hanging out with him, because he's truly a world traveler and a world mover and shaker. He's, because I've known him so many years, I've seen him unfold from, I don't know what to say, just the wild support for the rights of humanity, and just taking it to Geneva, to New York, to Amsterdam, to Africa, to all over the planet. It's just been an amazing experience listening to him tell the stories of his international travels in behalf of human rights. And what a scholar, and what an activist, and what a delightful human being. I want you to welcome Joshua Cooper.
Hello, it's an honor to be here this evening. It's great to see all of you. I've seen many of you throughout the day at different meetings and classes, as well as small meetings on different important issues related to student governance. So tonight I'm going to definitely look at the issue of self-determination from a student perspective, but also then connect the issues with what you're dealing with here on campus regarding basic fundamental freedoms and connect it to the global level, so that hopefully I can provide you with some tools that you can use to get some extra levers to make sure that the people live up to their obligations that they're supposed to, just to you as students. And so it is fortunate to be here. I have to admit, I started as a student activist. I was a student government. I was vice president for undergraduates at UHH, and then I was vice president for graduate students. And then I was student caucus chair. And most people met me then because I had a knack for being able to capture the imagination of Hawaii, to think about issues in a new way. And I was studying nonviolence and human rights and indigenous peoples. And my goal at the time was to be the global expert who could shut down a city if they were a government that wasn't expressing or appreciating its people, take anybody's case, whoever I met around the world, if things went bad, to the global level and do advocacy with whatever mechanisms exist. And then finally, be someone who can actually explain it, because too often the divide between academia and activism or community and college is just too big. We can't afford it. We have too many problems in this world, on this planet, and we have to be able to work together and unite. So I remember when I was a student, I did double major in political science journalism. Everybody said I was doing too many things. Everybody always told me why I couldn't or what I should do and everything like that. So the one thing that really brought it all together for me was human rights. Human rights showed it's the Western civilization that has siloed everything. And that's the problem. People aren't connected to the earth. People aren't connected to the place where they're born. People aren't connected to one another. In today's world, you buy a home, you become a prisoner in your own mortgage, and your excuse in life is, I'm just doing any job I have to pay the bills. And the truth is, life is more precious and valuable than all that. And you don't go to college and you don't have children to then perpetuate this problematic paradigm of what we call progress and development. So for me, human rights was really the liberation for me to understand the interconnectedness of all issues, but more importantly, it's the toolkit to transform the political system today. Today's democracy is dilapidated, it's depressing, it's all based on fundraising dinners, it's not about freedoms, and so it encourages people to never participate, it encourages people to never engage, and the politicians are pretty much, for the most part, happy. Because then they don't have to worry about accountability. And that's one of the main things we're going to talk about. One of the things I got from today's talk and hearing your wisdom of what you're planning is we're going to call that little street out there the avenue of accountability. So from the bottom to the top, you're just going to make it the avenue of accountability, and that'll be your message. And when you do look at things through a human rights lens, it just makes it that much more simple. And the exciting thing is you don't have to know a lot because it's common sense. And it's the principles upon which supposedly this country was founded. It's a principle on which many indigenous nations believed in. And they've been summarized in a small little document known as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So how many ever heard of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Probably a small number, right? No one knows about it because it's December 10th is the anniversary, so that's usually when you're in the middle of finals. Or it's 10 days after you've already gone into a turkey coma after a horrible football game where we, still don't appreciate indigenous people and call them redskins, and then kill each other for things we don't need from Walmart and Black Friday. Nice fun on people as well, we just won't get into that. And then buy things supposedly to show people that we care and love them instead of just not spending the time with them, which we should. And so it's all the problems that we have around our holidays, and that's the narrative of this nation, which is so problematic. But the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a phenomenal tool that Eleanor Roosevelt helped chair the Commission on Human Rights when they created it. And it really is a recipe for a moral revolution. It's the recipe for how we live together. And what I thought we could do is definitely apply to the student situation, but also all the way up to the global situation. And when you look at the global situation, people see acronyms. I know the petition right now has a couple acronyms in it. I would say it's tough to go acronym because people don't know. So we got to, as youth and as people who want to go to college and if people are trying to explain things to people, you got to break it down. Because otherwise they see TPP and they're like, what's that? Toilet paper. Nazis not coming. It's a TPP protest. Because Nazis, no. You can't do that, So you got to break it down so people understand and make it relevant to them. So the great thing about human rights and what I understand about it that's applicable on your campus, because really the campus is a microcosm of the community, of the country, but also in today's world, definitely global civil society. So human rights, the one thing that I like about it is everybody always like, you got such a passion for international relations, you speak some languages, you're going to be great. But for me, that was so boring. It was states talking to each other, not thinking about their people, and making some kind of agreement that wasn't at all applicable with what the people wanted. But human rights really brought down what global affairs is about to the grassroots level. It's about people. In fact, if you look at the UN Charter, this year it's celebrating its 70th anniversary, so I'm lucky. I just got back from New York and I finalized the deal. Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General, will speak at this conference organized in San Francisco on June 26th. So June 26th is a significant date because that's the day that 50 countries met in San Francisco and agreed to the UN Charter that starts, "We the people." It doesn't start out, "We the nation." It doesn't start out, "We the administrators." It doesn't start out, "We the advisors." It's "We the people." And that's an important part. And it says, we the people will live up to certain values. And in that UN Charter, there are only 50 countries. They met there and said, this is the framework to guarantee freedom for all people, to prevent future wars, but also we got to give people the toolkit that if they have a repressive government or a repressive system at the community level, that they have these tools and these rights that then allows them to organize and defend themselves, to not expect someone else to come in, but to defend yourself and to be able to be a spokesperson, and more importantly, engage and energize the people around you to recognize the commonality of what we're focusing on. And that's really why the UDHR was so valuable. If you look at these articles, they're simple, but I would definitely say the one article for the meeting tonight that we could really focus on is a principle that's in the UN Charter. That concept was self-determination. And self-determination is valuable for indigenous peoples and people who are colonized because it's breaking out of a system where people control every aspect. You shouldn't have that situation at the college. This should be the place of emancipation. because then you're not ever really worried. I mean, if you think about life and you think about what it is a university is, the one thing it should be is you figure out what your passion is. You figure out what you care about. And then if you really are fortunate, then you also figure out how your passion is also helpful to humanity. And if you combine the two, you'll be the best, and you'll be able to help people, and you'll hopefully be able to improve the situation wherever you're living or wherever people request you to come and assist. So it has been a fascinating journey from student activists, or exactly the same seats you are today, to traveling around the world and being a global advocate and doing the work that I've been fortunate to do for the last decade. So it is exciting. But this is the little recipe that I use, I can honestly tell you. So Article 21 is the one for you today. But the other side is they're all interconnected. So Article 21 is probably the big issue on your campus. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of their country, directly or through freely chosen representatives. Everyone has the right to equal access to public service in their country. That's basically what you're trying to do. As students, you're trying to participate. And democracy isn't something that just happens every 2 or 4 years. Democracy is every day. Democracy, you vote your values every meal. You vote for breakfast what you believe in. You vote for lunch what you believe in. You vote for dinner what you believe in. You can have clean margaritas. You can have clean, what do you call? You just live what you believe in. It's not something that's only every 2 or 4 years. And that's the problem. Everybody thinks they vote and then it's going to be taken care of. But democracy is every day. The other side too is economic democracy. We made a big mistake in this country where we only focus on civil and political rights. Our country was, in a way, sort of warped with the Cold War and everything, sort of frozen in that belief that we're civil and political rights, and there's economic, social, and cultural rights. But the two were always linked. Roosevelt talked about the Second Bill of Rights. He talked about the right to dignity, the right to employment, the right to health care, the right to housing, the right to education. If you don't have any of those, you're not like, well, I can't wait till November 4th. I'm going to put some hurt on those elected officials who do not listen to me. You know, you're thinking of immediate needs. So those are absolutely crucial. One of the fascinating things about these rights, I think it's Article 26. Most students love Article 24, which is a good one. It's right to rest and leisure. So sometimes you have to pull that up. The professor's giving too many exams. I'm feeling Article 24 violation. My rest and leisure is like, just violate. That's all I'm going to say. Just leave it at that. But you know, as a good faculty, I'd be like, Article 26? And they'd be like, damn, he knows his rights. But Article 26, it's everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free, at least in elementary and fundamental stages. Elementary education shall be compulsory. Technical and professional education shall be made generally available, and higher education shall be equally accessible to all on the basis of merit. We definitely substituted merit for money. We've got a huge crisis in our country. I remember when I was in college, everybody, that's where I got sort of famous at the state level, because I stopped a lot of tuition hikes. So I had great little techniques. We did combined Halloween. That's why I love Halloween, right? You see Waikiki or Lahaina. It's off the hook. I don't know where I get those outfits from, but it's a little manny. So I was like, we've got to organize a march. It's the death of education. And everybody took off on it. Everybody loved it. I had great students on each campus, and everybody marched together. So they're the biggest marches since Vietnam. Instead of responding, wow, this is great, students care, people like fought us. The governor would say, we're cutting deeper. People were saying, you don't understand. And we're like, we're actually doing what supposedly we're studying. I couldn't believe the response was not, good job, but generally challenging me even more, which only got me a little more motivated, I have to tell you. When they were like, you don't understand, where are you from? And I was like, why not? They go, well, that's why. Yeah, so how this works is, our kids go to the schools of what we call the mainland. I'm like, well, that's our problem. You consider that the mainland. That's the issue. That's not the mainland. That's just a continent over there that my indigenous friends call Turtle Island. But, you know, these islands could be the center because they're the most isolated landmass in the world. So that's center. And Oahu, unfortunately, sometimes gets carried away, and I feel sorry that you have to live with that. Everything's Oahu-centric.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that's all there. But one thing I definitely learned is it's neighbor islands and it's together. And if you have that narrow perspective, it's the problem. You know, when they say Molokai is the problem, and then they're looking at Oahu where they can't go anywhere, like honestly, this week you have to laugh. 4 hours to go anywhere. And everybody's mad at traffic. And I'm like, okay, there's two sides. One, if any one of you would put one more person in your car, that would eliminate one car. Because I teach at West Oahu, so I have to go out that way. I ride a bus, but everyone's in traffic, one person per car. So it's personal responsibility at every stage. And definitely traffic as well, but we don't do a good job at promoting public transportation. So even building a rail, if you don't educate people on why you want to ride it, you're still only going to have people who don't have any economic options but have to, as opposed to make it the space that everybody wants to get on. Like in other places around the world, you do ride direct to where everybody's at. You meet people, they're all cool people, they're all going to work. It's a space to be, and you're smart. You're not in traffic, you're not cranky. You listen to music, everybody has a little, there should be a cafe on it. You know, it should be something social, whereas, no, we make it punitive, no eating, no drinking, and or just a cranky bill. So you're poor and ride that bus. You know, I rode the bus from Waianae. It's probably the reason I got the good grades. It was the library on wheels. But it was great. I just had to study, and there was nothing else you could really do. And unfortunately, some of my friends get sick driving and reading, but I don't have that problem. I can read and roll. So it was great for me. It's just solitary. It was good. It was for the internet, so you can really focus. Now it's hard because they text you, they Facebook you. Too many distractions. So school's definitely harder now to get people focused. But the other part about education is education should be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. So it's actually to make you a better person to then contribute to your community and country, which is a little different than the way we've seen it now with career counseling of, oh, Chinese are visiting, you need to learn Chinese. And tourism is wonderful, you know, it's not a good route. And then the other thing it says, it shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and shall further activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. So what it's saying is a lot different than what college is about today. But that's kind of a big part of it, is what is education and what is it all about? So I have to admit, I was very fortunate that I was able to learn about human rights. I was able to put together political science, indigenous rights, human rights law, ethnic studies, Pacific Island studies, women's studies, future studies. They're all the same. And the problem with Western academia and school is we really just put everything in silos, and then you can't ever challenge someone if you're not an economist. I always love it when my scientist friends be like, you can't discuss biotech, Josh. You're not a scientist. And I'm like, right. But when you put so much money into something that's an area of public policy, I think I need to weigh in on it a little bit. And if you're so bright, you should be able to explain it to me, so even someone of my feeble mind can understand how important it is, and how you're really not looking at pure corporation profits, but really feeding people. Please explain it to me. So, unfortunately, the more I see it around the world in indigenous communities that I work with, it's the same pattern, and it is not at all about nutrition, and definitely much more about the bottom line and profit. And one of the best quotes I ever heard is Oren Lyons from the Haudenosaunee, or the Iroquois Confederacy. And he said, you know, in indigenous knowledge, everybody always asks, what's your bottom line? He said, we don't have a bottom line, because we believe everything in circles. And there isn't a price for everything. In fact, that's your problem. You see everything through an economic prism that doesn't allow you to see what's really important. You can see, if you think ecology is not the most important, you definitely can't see economy is more important. Because everything we have, everything in this room, everything we eat, all comes from the earth. Well, the problem is most people don't know that. I mean, I took my students when I taught on Maui, and we were all in the Logie one day out at Uncle Albert Ducalo's, and one guy wasn't eating at night. And you have to eat after you worked all day because you feel hungry. It's not like the usual playing video games where you just sit there and consume sugar. It was like, Joey, do you know where that comes from? Do you know what? How can you eat that? Our feet were in the mud. You saw that? It's dirty. And I was like, all of our food comes from dirty. And he was like name one thing. And I'm just like, this is once again a little too easy, my friend. And I'm like, just one? He's like, just one. I'm like, let's try potato, French fries, French pomme de terre, apple of the earth. He's like, French fries. Jack doesn't make them. It really comes from the earth. So the problem is, people don't have a foundation anymore. They don't get those points. So it's sort of difficult and definitely challenging. And so definitely to try to live up to these values and create a campus, and that was always my thing. It's like, if you can't do it on campus, you can't do it at the community level, you can't do it at the country level. And campus should be the space where you make mistakes. You try. I know my advisor didn't always appreciate all the work that I did. And I wrote for the paper, so I wrote editorials. I was the editorial page editor. So I wrote 2 editorials a day. And I could touch about just about anything. And so there I was like, it was called the political shoot with coup. It's a little salt and pepper before they made insurance ads. Just kind of sad to see salt and pepper doing insurance ads these days. But, oh well, there goes our role models. Exactly. 100%. So it's just where we've gone. Everything is even more economic than possible. So when we look at that, I mean, it's really crucial to understand this is the space where, well, for one, I think faculty, I always thought about when I was a student, you don't have, I mean, and it's sad if you have to break it down to it, but you don't have a job if I'm not here. The campus exists because there's students. You can't just have buildings, although we love building them, huh? And no solar panels on any of them. I always love that. We keep getting more and more advanced and then not getting any more sustainable in all the things that we do. But the whole essence of education is the students. And so it should be that space where, I mean, you're here to help, you're here to assist. You have accumulated wisdom. I have to admit, you know, after teaching for numerous years, I hopefully have learned a little bit something that I could share, but it should be something that I would have to use political power over to exert to not allow you to do what you desire. In fact, I think school's a form of violence. Actually, I think grades are ridiculous. I guess I might as well be honest. I don't get final exams or midterms. That's only because you spend more time trying to figure out how to cheat. You know, girls are like riding on the thigh, the baseball cap, you know, it's every technique instead of just enjoying learning. So I was like, and it's power. I've got grade in hand, so I can make you do anything. Because you're like, I need that scholarship, or I have to get this, and I got to do it. So I try to eliminate on the first day. Look, you're paying way too much to be here anyway. I personally think I'm better than the faculty I had, so you're lucky, you've done a great bargain. But still, make the most of this opportunity and find out what means really the most important to you. Find out your moral compass. Find out what really is the most important to you. So yeah, I have assignments that are all based on readings and writing, but I don't care what you believe. I like when you challenge my views. I learn more. If you write something that makes me think in a new way, I'll never forget you. I'll be like, huh. I remember the first assignment I ever graded as a college professor. It was a poem, letter to the editor, or song. Because it was a 110 class. So what can you do for the first assignment? You don't want to overwhelm people. So it was called Job. There was a wanted ad for job, and it said woman. There was one young woman saying, this is all the crap I have to deal with as a young woman growing up. And this is my world. And I was just like, 5-0. It was absolutely perfect. It was insightful. You know, and political knowledge is a couple of things, right? It's rational thought. I've read things. I've seen this many films. I've formed this opinion. It's intuition. It's not, you know. I can't tell exactly why, but just trust me, this is why it is, and let me try to share my passion with you and convince you. Or the final is, it's personal experience. I have no idea, I never read, but I did this. I dug this ditch, I organized this, and this is where I am. And no matter who you ever meet, no matter what person ever tells you something, you can always break it down, which one of those three are you basing this decision on? And you cut through stuff. Same thing with politicians. Is it your conscience? Is it your greater country? Is it the political contribution you just received? You can break all that down. Whenever anybody makes a political decision, you're like, it's the C's. Cash, conscience, country, what is it? You know, and everybody goes, well, it's a common, hey, let's figure this out, talk to me so at least I know, and then we can disagree or agree. But you know, politics isn't that difficult. So human rights really is a way to translate all of the different going-ons in the world to just what does it mean to you, and more importantly, what can you do about it, and what do you want to do. So it's been a stunning career, to say the least, to work on social change. I've looked at the one little notes I took when I was in your meeting today. I actually loved it. So first and foremost, I love how it's a government in exile. So I never thought in all my years and all the work that I've done, but now I can at least add that to my resume, because just in January I was with the government in exile of Laos, helping them at the Universal Periodic Review in Geneva. They were great. They had no funding. They're like, how are we going to do this? I'm like, we don't have money. I'm like, so they're like, what are we going to do? I'm like, well, how many people want to come? They're like, 100. And I'm like, no money and 100 want to come? That's like a lot. Normally it's like, they got no money, it's me and my friend. You know, this is my husband, and this is his daughter, she's the intern, and we're going to do this together. And you're like, all right, good family community, we're going to get this done. 100 people show up, because most people don't remember, but we bombed that country more than almost any place on earth. And so unfortunately, in my human rights work, I end up cleaning up the mess of my country all too often. So they're all over the world, they've been separated for 40 years. They had not seen each other. The last time we saw each other was refugee camps.
Oh, Laos?
Thailand, yeah, Laos.
Oh, yeah, and then they're in Michigan too.
Yeah, main places, Fresno. So I always help them at Hmong New Year. They have a great system. They have anybody have a ball? They hook up this way. So it's a cultural thing. So they, yeah, oh, that's great, I love class. It's a happy little ball. So is he a shamrock?
It was from St. Patty's Day.
It's what I thought. We always
About
had
American.
poor Irish people. We always get it's just Guinness and drunkenness and St. Patrick's Day. And the irony of St. Patrick's Day, right? Brought Catholicism to an indigenous people who didn't believe it, and now we celebrate and drink beer and get drunk. Yeah, it's a tragic history moment, but as Irish, it's okay on that. I taught in Ireland, I got back home, it was all good. But yeah, so crazy thing. If you look at in Hmong culture, obviously, we're not doing good in relationships. The Thursday ladies' night, go out in the club and then see everybody dance and think that works. It's not a successful system. Not everybody's ready to go that India style either, though, where mom and dad pick, because you know what you did to mom and dad, so they might pick the wrong one just to get back at you. But Hmong culture, you throw the ball back and forth and ask each other a question every time you throw it. And then if you like each other, then it starts getting a little better, and that's how they kind of roll for just hours. And then if you really like, but then you're thinking, how's the kids going to be, you know? Then you throw it a little higher to see if they have good eye-hand coordination. Like, oh, maybe not a keeper. Maybe not a keeper. So, you know, they do all those things. But if you go to the indigenous way again, we're going to find the shamrock. Don't worry, he's not going. He bounces well. And we still have a future there if you really want. It was just an example of context. Yeah, right. So, what's really important in human rights language is, it's good to know it's somewhere in its green. It could blend in with this beautiful carpet. Justin could just be trying to keep it because it's so cool. But you can even use human rights language in relationships on Thursday night, because is this like an Article 16, right, to find a family, serious, like spooning forever, Hilo reign, becoming closer, or just more Article 24, like fun, right, to rest and leisure. And it's a good way to go, like, oh, you're 18, you're 16, I'm 24, maybe we shouldn't be together, but 16, 24, at least you know the seriousness of the conversation at that point. So human rights is absolutely valuable. And the Lao culture is amazing because they've survived everything, and they're trying to get back into their homeland, and they've had French try, they've had now Vietnam try, but the one thing they want is exactly what you want here. They want to be able to have their views, they want to be able to be accepted, and they don't want to be dominated by an outside force. And more importantly, they also feel, bless you, that they know what they're doing. They have that inherent right of self-determination. So it was great to see that I'm here with the government in exile, even in Hawaii. And Laos in January, and then, that's good, Cambodia just last month in March. So it's excellent. As long as I keep it consistent, governments in exile, that's usually who I help. Some governments that I've helped are now in power. One of the greatest moments here for me at Hilo was we brought Jose Ramos Horta. At that point, he just won the Nobel Peace Prize, so we had when you could meet on the balcony without having to pay. We had an event that was free, and we had everybody screaming like, Timor, Leste, and no one knows Timor-Leste, but it was very similar. They've been colonized by the Dutch, they've been colonized by Portuguese, they've been colonized by Indonesia for 25 years. And he left with $25 in his pocket to New York and did his best to teach the world about his people. The United States, once again, horrible. Kissinger gave the green light. They bombed, they destroyed over 1/3 of their population killed in 25 years. Amazingly enough, after we brought him here, and I was helping him, and we meet a couple more times, he'd be like, "Man, ambassador from Hawaii, how are you?" And it was always fun when you're at a big party and it's all big wigs, and he's like, "Ambassador from Hawaii, how are you?" I'm like, "How are you?" You know? But now he's been the president and the prime minister. I've been able to go there and teach at the university, be able to train some of the civil service, and more importantly, now he's even like the advisor to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon on important issues in Somalia. So he went from, everybody thought he was an Eskimo, and he's like, "No, East Timor." They're like, "Eskimo." So tough life to start that struggle. But succeeded because he organized, he planned, and he believed in what he was working on, that right of self-determination, and then was able to get his country back. Of course, we live in an era of globalization, corporations, large powers, always want your natural resources, in this case, your money, and we'll do anything to hold on to it and never give it back, and have an excuse not to give it to you even though it's yours. So they were able to organize and create independence, and that's really what it's about. The other thing I thought that I really found valuable today was 2 words: people power. And that's really what it comes down to. And everybody knows what power they have, and most people don't have like their full tool belt. I still laugh. Everybody still sees me and thinks, "Protester." It's the funniest thing. I walk into the East-West Center. "I'm not here to protest. What would you do?" And I'm always like, that was so like, honestly, I hate to say it, that's like 20 years ago. Like, I mean, I'm still a damn good protester, but it's not my only skill. Like, I'm not holding the sign. I got the aloha shirt on, right? You know, I'm not here to protest, but they're still, that's what they're scared about. So that always tells me, that's a good thing. Protest is powerful. So people power is very crucial. I always use direct action and diplomacy. Both work out really well. Sometimes people don't want to meet with you. Little direct action, voila, they're there, then you can be diplomatic and solve. No problem. But sometimes that's what you need to do. So people power is absolutely crucial. Integrity, that's absolutely it. I mean, what you're trying to do is live a righteous life. And what you're trying to do is say, look, in a way, we have a contract. You're the university, I pay a certain amount. In return, I get certain services. On the other hand, this is the university, and you should be, for the most part, out of my way in sort of guiding, but definitely not restricting. We'll use restricting, I was going to say something else, but definitely not being a roadblock to your future progress and to figure out what you want to be. And so integrity is absolutely essential. And yeah, I remember, I mean, if I think about where I started with activism, it was like a crazy thing. It started in high school, and it started definitely in college, but I was like, if I paid this amount, and your model's economic, then you need to live up to that side. If you want to extract that, and we start living like we do in Holland, Holland's great. So I mean, I teach sometimes human rights courses there, and one of my favorite moments ever in life was the reception dinner in Utrecht, just right outside of Holland, right outside of Amsterdam, there in the center of Holland. And there's these poor Dutch students complaining, "Do you believe we only get $600 stipend per semester to do my doctorate?" And I was like, that must be tough. And like, you get some stroopwafel, they got this thing called vlogs, like liquid pudding, absolutely delicious, one of my favorite desertarian meals. And I was like, only 600. Meanwhile, the NYUs are just dying. NYU was like, you get paid money to go to college. And I was like, only 600. NYU students are like, come on, 100,000 in debt. One of the biggest things that's important with your issues here that I give a student union, the idea of education, is how great can education be? How can this be a free moment to you? How can you do what you want? If you're racking up such a debt, and then you could work for some corporation or something you don't believe in, just so you could pay off the amount that you accumulated while going to college. In a way, it's the worst form of slavery because you think you're in it in a free way. And so, I mean, there's a lot of good elected officials now in the U.S. talking about we make profit off of your debt. All these things are absolutely horrible. But yeah, I mean, I have students that work for me at Georgetown, $70,000 a year. 70,000. So if he's like, I didn't get that done, I'm like, it's okay. You have 70,000. Take the day off. I'm perplexed because if I owe 70,000, I don't think I'd go enjoy Georgetown cupcakes. I definitely wouldn't go out. I would definitely never play video games. What are you doing? You're paying 70,000 here. Turn off the television. You gotta spend every moment to get 70,000. I read every book twice. $70,000 is what I'm doing. Craziest. So you graduate, you're $300,000 in debt. Are you going to go save the Amazon? Are you going to go work and teach in the community where you grew up? Are you going to? You can't. Unless you have some great Article 24 skills and you hook up, they're kind of, Clooney. She just got hired. She was actually brilliant too, so we shouldn't say it that way. Clooney's wife now teaches with a friend of mine at Columbia Law School. So she's at the Human Rights Institute, so we both are going to have a fellowship this summer. So I look forward to working with them. But I mean, that's crazy. That's good. Maybe Human Rights I can hook up Jolie. I mean, it's only Brad Pitt. Look at this. You got it. So, no problem. Those are both little Cambodia, right? So we're going to an S out of it. So we're definitely going to hook up. It's going to be great. So we don't have to worry about that. But when you owe that much, how could you ever really do what you ever thought? Or how could you ever study what you really want? It doesn't even allow you to figure out globalization. We had the big five, and it just continued. It's nothing new. So human rights, I would say, is a great tool, and makes your belt just a little more full. You're ready to walk around Home Depot like the rest of the kids. The other thing I thought, and that was quite interesting, is definitely an issue of patriarchy and how you're treated with a lack of respect. And that's where really it's a people-centered approach. It's a people-centered approach for how our policies should be at a national level and in global affairs. And it's a student-centered approach on the micro level, how a campus should be. It's the way a classroom should be. Of course, we're the only country that hasn't ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child. We have to create new countries now. Since Somalia actually ratified it, we had to create South Sudan, so it's not only us. But I mean, yeah, if you think about a classroom, it should be based on how a child learns, what we're trying to accomplish. But yeah, we're the only place where we don't adopt the child rights framework. So we've got a lot to do. So it's not control and power over, it should be creativity and possibility. That's what the university should symbolize for you, and I think it's great that you're fighting for that. The other thing is definitely on passion and empowerment. That's the essence. And the one thing I would say is like, do what is right. I think that was one of your quotes I remember. I do what is right. And you also like a good fight, I believe is your quote. And that's what King talked about. Like, it's always the right time to do what is right. And he wrote that from the Birmingham jail. And I was pretty fortunate last month. I was actually in Birmingham. We convinced the mayor of Birmingham to have a universal periodic review, a UPR, discussion about human rights in Birmingham. And that was a great way to measure it. It's no longer, it's what are the indicators that really say Birmingham's changed. It's not just one person who's made it. It's not just a small community or a neighborhood. It's really looking at how is everyone doing. How is everyone actually, their lives being improved. And when we did that, I mean, that's really, when you see where King sat in the jail and was told by other preachers, and probably you'd hear the same from your students, like, why fight this? I mean, we're so busy, don't we have extra jobs we gotta go do, and da-da-da-da-da. And it's difficult. Most people don't get it. But on the other hand, what you're doing, as you point out, is for future generations. It's also to set up a practice where you can change the conditions and the circumstances. And everyone benefits from it. It's one of the greatest things to do public service. It's one of the greatest things to do human rights advocacy. It's one of the greatest things to be a student leader. Because you know the issues. You live the issues. And because of that, you can give a great insight on how to make the situation better. I'll never forget, Noah brought it up and I forgot about it, or Justin did, where, one of the things I did also in college was a student vote on the board region. And they would roll everyone out. So it happened, I wasn't the first one to do it. 20 years they tried to get this passed at the legislature. I just got lucky. I had a good team. Kule Afiche, he lives here. Another friend, Kalani. We all just got together in a good way. And we were like, don't let them divide us. We want a student vote on the board regions, and we pushed. And we didn't get a student vote originally. We got 5 non-voting members. But that was kind of cool because we made like Power Rangers, Forma, Creator. We had fun with it. Because then it was also like, no pressure. I was just budget and finance, which was like, budget, finance, and long-term planning. So they give you a stack of paper this big. You're going to read it. So then you'd read it all night, and the next day, all you could do was question. I couldn't vote. I was a non-voting member. But it was great. We actually used all that, and then other members would be like, the student region's making some good points. Upon further reflection, could you maybe table this for 2 more months and provide us with that? Because that's truthfully what we need to make a decision. You'd be like, but, okay, 2 months. And then we'd keep going, and now we have a student on the board region, which is good. But it's not going to be, you have to have a movement to keep that person honest, and a whole new cycle of young students and people that want to participate in that. It's definitely the most thankless job. It's fun. You travel with the other regions. That always, you go to the drinking parties with them, make jokes, but say your points in a joking way, and they're like, oh my God, you just told me. That's right, that's what I just told you. So you have to do it in a different way. You got to test your diplomacy level, and that's what it's really about. But yes.
Josh, one thing I'm not sure that everybody in the room knows what has happened to our student government and why they're a government in exile. Could you explain that?
Well, it's probably definitely not my place. I've learned one thing when I represent people around the world to definitely let people be the voice. I can give some part, but I definitely have not been working with the government exile for years. So I do know there's a crazy pattern of 4 different, if not 5 different generations of elected people being dismissed, which is pretty unique. Like, you don't even get that in indigenous communities these days, in a row. And now I know we have students who are, I think, being very creative and coordinating a campaign to challenge the structure and to make sure that some of the resources are returned, but also more importantly, to make sure that the system is actually improved so that it moves in a better direction. So I would defer to anyone in the room who's at the other side of the avenue of accountability, that we'll call it, for our protest coming up on the 14th and 16th next week.
We're studying, we'll test.
Oh,
That's Tuesday to Thursday. We want our concerns to be heard. We want the American students, and they're not recognizing us, and we want them to be accountable.
And they are,
They are our campus administration, so we're Hawaii ECC students. And right now we have a fight with our advisor and our vice chancellor for student affairs and our chancellor, because there's been stuff going on, like our advisor, who we have removed, but administration refuses to take her out of that position, spending money without our approval, not processing our paperwork. So if we want to have an event for students, our paperwork's not being processed, but then there's other people that come after us, and it's like 5 days, and they have their appeal. We also had our meeting room locations for 2 meetings canceled, and we feel that it violates our right to assemble, because our advisor doesn't want us to meet and make these decisions, like removing her and all this other stuff.
Josh,
Yes?
what is a vote of no confidence?
Well, in other political systems, they're much more frequent. So full systems that are more proportional representation, where elected officials are only based on how many people get into office. We just have the two-party system, so it's a little bit more limited. On the other hand, it's a little bit more volatile, and you have to read the newspaper more frequently instead of every 4 years. So vote of no confidence can be held in many countries. Italy's most infamous for it. They've had the most. So if the members of parliament say we have a vote of no confidence, and they vote that they have no confidence, then the government is dissolved, and they have a certain amount of time to then create a new election and start all over again.
So how does it work in like the Hawaii Community College? Like if we did a vote of no confidence for our chancellor or our administration, or how does that work?
It's not a formal structure like in the
It's not a
like in
formal.
the election thing. So it's more of one of those great, Gene Sharp has 198 nonviolent strategies. So it's more of awareness raising, publicity, and coordinating campaign for long term. But these are people who have contracts, and unfortunately, the University of Hawaii is infamous for football coaches and other great people who get huge salaries and then mess up, and then we still have to pay them because they have the contract, and then we're still paying for all our fees, and they're teaching physical education or weightlifting, because they're still under contract. So, there's certain things we do have to consider and strategically think about if you're trying to remove folks of that level. On the other hand, I think a way to break it down is you can't go all the way to the top, but you also, with human rights too, it's also demands. So that's one of the things that I was going to try to go over towards the end of this evening is, even though you're a campus, and even though it might seem in some circles sort of not a global issue, I'm fortunate right now. So I'm currently the co-chair of the Universal Periodic Review of the United States of America. That'll take place in Geneva in a month. So most of you don't know about it because it's not the sexiest topic, but and UPR, the upper. Anyway, you can think of it as the gateway drug to human rights, since we're talking human rights. So the cool thing about the UPR, the Universal Periodic Review, is when I've been involved at the UN, there was a couple of things where they try to create new institutions that create greater accountability. One of them was they changed the Commission on Human Rights, which created the Universal Declaration, which is folded over right now, like hopefully your administration will. And they said the Commission on Human Rights should be replaced with a new body, and they want to create a new body called the Human Rights Council. So when you create something new, you've got to show that it's not the same soapy margarita in a new glass, but that's a whole new margarita with extra salt and some crazy, strong tequila at the bottom of to clean it all out. That's what you got to prove. So the Human Rights Council is like, we got to do something. So the thing they came up with was known as the UPR, the Universal Periodic Review, that every country in the world would have its human rights record reviewed every 4.5 years. So most people don't know, and no government tells it. They don't go like, hey, come hold us accountable. May 11th, it's us. Bring the heat. No one does that. In fact, I hear most people leave campus when accountability comes up. So it's a new thing, like, oh, when accountability comes to town, you just walk away. So, it's one of those things with the UPR. The exciting thing is the United States will be reviewed on May 11th. I'll explain to you the process on how that works, but I've worked with a lot of people in a lot of communities on a lot of issues. So just last week it was trans women, women of color, sex workers from the Southwest at the border issues. That's a lot of interconnected issues. And also with women who face abuse and violence in the military. So former Marines, unfortunately, have had horrible situations happen to them. But the whole issue of all of this is accountability and respect and dignity and rights. That's what it is at the bottom. So one of the things I was going to bring up to you is, it's not the only thing, and especially when I work with everyone I've worked with, I don't ask them to work on something that doesn't fit in with exactly what they're already doing. But I do see it as an extra, it's no more extra work for you. It is a cut and paste process that gives you another lever at the global level to put pressure at a small campus, which would be very concerned if they were brought up in a global arena. If the chancellor gets a letter that says 3 governments made recommendations about accountability regarding your action of funds and corruption at a university, they're like, how did the UN even know what we're, I don't even know what this UN is. We're going to call that new teacher who teaches model UN and bring her in to explain this to us. So using the global institutions is fun because no one knows what they are. And you do, so then you have all the power, which is what the university was supposed to be about, giving you personal power to be able to shape your world. So one of the things I was going to bring up is, it's all your choice. You can participate if you want to, and if you do, I'll take your issues in 2 weeks to Washington, D.C. when we meet with ambassadors, and in 2 weeks to United States missions, United Nations missions that are in New York, and then May 11th I'll be in Geneva. And it's easy because I'm the co-chair of the task force, so I work with ACLU, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, International Indian Treaty Council. They're all in the coalition, which is great, because they're all your allies. The other cool thing, though, is I'm also the co-chair of the education working group. So under education, there's a lot of things being brought up. There's human rights education. How is it that you never knew about the Universal Declaration until you went to college? It's a little late. Even if you get excited about it, you're still like, oh, I got dead, I'm probably married by now too. I can't just be I can't just go change the world. You know? Why did I learn about this in elementary school? It'll be so much more. You know, so it's human rights education. We're working with the Human Rights Education USA Task Force, and they're looking at elementary all the way through university. My goal, before I stop teaching them to have a master's in human rights, UH system-wide. I want to create a Hawaii Center for Human Rights Research and Action across the board, system-wide. Because then it also gives people a chance. The cool thing about human rights is you don't have to do the human rights issue I think is valuable. You do the human rights issue that's valuable to you, it still contributes to the community, the country, and the global civil society. But we all see the interconnectedness of all the issues, and that's the beauty and also the boldness of human rights is it's not conformity, it's compassion, it's making sure in creativity, it's making sure that we all actually realize we're in this together. And if you're impacted, I'm impacted. And I can't really be free until you're free. And if we don't organize and do things, then we're all going to be living this life. And then we got Bob Marley songs to try and make us feel better. But he does hit on a lot of important topics. I do like to get up standard for your rights aspect. The other point that you mentioned that was really good as well was compassion and community, and then changing the world. I mean, it's really what it's about. I mean, I'm fortunate. Noelle was talking about the dialectic and dream in her classes. I teach global futures this semester. There's nothing better than that because you got to see the world as you want it and then plan. So if you want to have a world better, it can't just happen that way. It can't just happen. You actually have to plan to coordinate to get there. It's not just the Dorothy magic slippers, click them twice. You can't just say, I want to do this. Well, then how do you measure that in 2 years that you're on the right path? How do you measure that in 4 years? And what's optimal? So there's always 4 scenarios with any futures. You've got optimal, beyond belief, I couldn't even think it could be this good, which we all want in relationships. A little bit better than what we thought, it's okay. Not going in the right direction, but not totally to the depressed moment yet. And then just gloom and doom, horrible, we're going backward in a bad way. You wish climate change would happen quicker. You know, it's that scenario. So those are the 4. And that's really what college is about too. It's, you start beginning to map out your future. The classes that you take, the subjects that you study, all those should be building blocks and a foundation for where you're aiming to move and how to coordinate that way. And so, when we look at that, I think that's kind of an important point that we have to consider. And what I was going to share with you, let's make sure if we're talking, is somebody coming in, you're saying time? Someone has this room next? Is it the church from next door?
No.
Who is it?
Is the church next door? Amen, brother.
Government. No, so we actually have about 100 people who are coming in the room that we've held off. And we have the space reserved, so I'm very sorry.
Oh.
Outside.
What time do you guys have that?
It's at 8 p.m.
Oh, okay.
From 8 to
I
10.
can wrap up in 10, that's great.
Okay, I will hold them off for 10 minutes.
That's great. What group is it?
It's the residence life student staff. So our student staff.
Excellent, I love resident life, it's very important. Right to housing, okay.
I'm very sorry.
No! Excellent. So,
Wait a minute. I had this meeting with her
do you want me to sit in protest?
I
You want me to shut this down? I can shut this down. I mean, he's got 2 doors. Well, 4 technically, but we can definitely, we can make resident life homeless. That's no problem.
Well, the thing is, I did it through, through the administration.
What administration?
The, what's it called,
How do we turn on the projector? I'll just do a quick thing real quick. I can knock this out.
okay.
Do we have the,
Well, you should just go tell them you have it till 9, they can go get another room. They're connected,
is this the,
but then they give us another room.
which one's that? Which,
Um,
I got the screen. Because I can show you stuff real quick.
You know what, maybe we could go into another room.
Yeah, that's why I know you, that's good.
I'll go find another room. 5 minutes. I'll find another room, Josh, I'm good.
I'm cool. Yeah, you can.
I think there's plenty of rooms out there.
But you know what I wonder, is it a right, do students truly have rights, or do
Sure.
they not have rights?
I don't know, I think if you talk to anyone, they would, I'd be interested in anyone saying you don't have rights. So,
Are they, are they, if, as consumers, they have rights?
well, that's pretty sad. We have to think of ourselves just as
No,
consumers.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
seriously though. I mean, all this, when it comes down, they pay for a service, but what service do they get? And how do students evaluate that?
Well, there's lots of ways. I think, there's many different avenues of evaluation. There's many different, some people, if you look at it from the most narrow economic sense, it's how much you donate back to your university. Right?
Okay,
That's one way. I know when I'm at Georgetown, the wall is how much people donate back every year.
right,
So that's a huge thing.
okay.
The other side is, you come back and do things. I'll never forget, when I first started teaching, the funniest thing that ever happened to me was the president of the university saw me. We were doing a Bob Marley birthday bash, Why Are People Starving in Paradise, soccer benefit, can drive. And we had students and faculty playing soccer, and it was a great event, everyone's having a great time. And the president of the university sees me, he goes, "What are you doing here? You could have made it." And I was like, all right, that hurts. I'm teaching at your university where I used to be a student at, and you're saying, why are you still here? You could have made it. I was like, oh, did you go to Harvard? I'm like, yeah, I still go and lecture at Harvard. It's no problem, but Hawaii's home, so I think I made it because I have a job and I'm not home. And he was like, I don't know what you're doing. I'm like, no, it's an okay thing. So, you definitely have rights. I would argue with anyone. I'd love to see someone say, you don't have a right to educate. You don't have a right as a student who's paid money to get certain things. That would be quite an intriguing conversation. And I'd love to hear what language they would use as opposed to a rights perspective or opposed to,
Because we're not getting anywhere, that's why. Maybe people just keep having to go these chains and they're not
Yeah.
honoring.
well, then you don't also do the same thing and then keep saying it doesn't work. You take them out of their space and bring them onto your space. When they were going to cut the library hours, so that's when before the internet, when I was like 5 years old, and they were going to cut our library. And they honestly said, they just announced it. We're going to have budget cuts, no library for the we have to cut it. And I was like, the library is kind of like the heart. How can you why even have a college if you can't have a library? And they were like, you're just being oversympathetic. I'm like, this is sad when college students tell you you need a library and you as administration are saying that's silly. So what we did was we took over, I just organized with 100 of my closest friends, we just took over the library. And amazingly enough, the next morning there was $2 million they found. So the point is, don't always play their game and all the things to go through all the process that you need to remove something or to change a condition. But then also put it to a space where you're more comfortable with. Look for the issues, find them. So here's my one thing I'll say before we get, this is ironic, getting evicted from our room by the housing people.
Yeah.
Life is full of irony, so it's a pretty fun one. Oh,
It's just the story of our lives.
right. I'm like, Mom, getting evicted by housing. Okay.
But it's also like the privatization of this campus. If you don't have dollars, you don't get to use any
Absolutely.
facilities.
And I would, politely, I would.
Or if your name is not Matsuura, Illinois, Fujimoto, or something, you don't get nothing on it.
I understand.
There's a room in Campbell.
Okay. Well, we're going to take it all the way to 8.
Getting very.
It's
They got it at 8, so I think we should.
It's 8:08.
Oh, that clock don't work.
That clock will work back there?
It says 6:10.
That's awesome.
It says 5:50.
So it's 8:10. So I shouldn't like just, pure principle take it? Okay. So yeah, I'm a peacemaker, so I was looking back there going, I got 10 more minutes. Why is there so? All right, so, well, we're definitely going to log out so they don't read my email.
Oh, sure.
Because that could be exciting. You know, there's been a lot of travel lately in my life. But we'll go in another room.
111.
In 111, and we will review the UPR just as a potential tool that you can utilize. But it's also, it's not a tool to distract you to go focus on global and not local. It is a tool that I think will help you coordinate your campaign more effectively. So we'll get into it, but the only thing you need to really think of is, it's always important, what is the issue? If a media comes up to you and says, hi, so why are you angry? And you're like, well, let me start. You know, they're like, all right, thank you, that's next soundbite, over. You've got to know, like, what's the issue? Then you've got to know specifically, what's the question that has to be asked? That society has to ask, that students need to be asking, or that you need to ask the person who's supposed to be making the decision to put pressure on them. And then the final thing is the recommendation. What are you recommending? You know the problem, it's impacting you. You firsthand have to deal with the situation. What's your recommendation? What language needs to be changed? What has to happen so that it doesn't continue, it's not perpetuated? You actually break that cycle. So if you break it down, in law school it's called IRAC, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. Very layman, doesn't always work. There's people involved that has to get included. But this one, if you go issue, and you could state that in their thing, questions, and recommendations, and more importantly, make your recommendations smart. Make them specific, measurable, action-oriented, reasonable, and a timetable. You should not be here by this date, and this should be changed at this. So you make it exactly with what you want. The one thing I'll end before we get evicted by housing, never had that happen before, by the way, is
Welcome.
I was so much fun because I was like, he's giving me this eye like, I'm like, in the room, I thought it was a second wave of people, you know, like, you guys had to bring in more energy, you know, to
Well, maybe
But-
you'll get arrested.
I don't think so. Have you seen campus security? I mean, politely, campus security and our friends on every campus, they still remember me from my student days. So security seems to be like, we're going to have problems today? I'm like, I don't think so. I'm like, I'm still fit. How about you, Doug? Don't test this, man. Don't test this. They're all retired and they're all on every campus I teach on now. So when they see me, like, we got a protest, I'm like, could be, how you feeling? They're like, make me feel young, Josh, make me feel young. I'd love to do that here. But the main thing we're doing is we're beyond naming and shaming, because that's easy.
Right.
And at the beginning, that's the point. You've got to get the word out. But now you're at kind of framing and claiming your rights and making it better. So it's not only what's wrong, because everybody's good at that. Relationships, you know it, sort of like, I'll tell you what's wrong with this relationship. But then what do you want? I don't know. You know, that's the point. We've got to get to what we want and why we want it and what that will mean to everyone's life. And we'll kind of continue with that in the next group. Walk out with dignity, say hi. That's why we're leaving. I'm going to take my poster.
Sir?
It's still not my email, right? I don't want
Yeah,
that.
Business.
they're out.
Will you guys post that online? What
I've moved out of Facebook. Just because people send you those pictures like, how are you? And you're like, how do you get that off your Facebook? So I have Facebook. But if you ever find me on Facebook, you won't recognize me because it's when I snuck into China. So I had this kind of goatee snow lion look. And that way China didn't recognize me either. So you could try to find me. If you do find me, then you're really good at Facebook. Joshua L. Cooper. But the easiest way to be in touch with me is just Joshua Cooper Hawaii at Gmail. I always answer that. So that is the better way to be in touch.
So Joshua Cooper, Hawaii, at
Gmail.com. Gonna get more Facebook savvy after my 2 days here. Apparently I'm not in the game.
Yeah, bringing it into the,
Bringing it in.
I brought this monkey to the Facebook, not your first. I liked it.
So yeah, so what we'll talk about real briefly is, it's just one mechanism, but there's lots of mechanisms what you can actually work on at the end. But the only point is, it's only, any of the things you use it only if it's effective for you. I mean, based on what you're talking about, these are the human rights. And this is why they're interconnected, right? 21 is the main issue we're talking about. But 20 is absolutely crucial. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. Okay, it's a little intimate. Let's get the candles going. Okay, really intimate. Okay, yeah, I wouldn't touch those for a little while this week. We go dark and
No, but it's so funny how you touch up.
you touch it, all goes down. It's straight up.
There's no middle.
There's no middle ground with that light. It's just slide or it's dark. It's real simple. So, Article 20 is the right to freedom of assembly. Freedom of opinion is Article 19. That's the press, right? So all of these are connected. You're not going to have any of these things if you don't utilize all of them. So, based on what you're looking at and what's going on, I would also stagger it. Board of Regents are coming in. They're coming in. Organize a little bit for that meeting. Keep it alive. Unfortunately, you're coming up to the point where it's finals. Faculty and administration always know the culture of the semester. You start off strong, never quick enough. Then a couple midterms come up, just when you're starting to really think. Have to focus on that. Then you got finals. Oh, no, I'm sorry. If it's fall, it's horrible because it's over after Thanksgiving. And then in summer, that's a coma of consciousness. So I would actually do the best that you could is do a great job at Board of Regents. See how far you can get with the specific situation. You know, there's a lot of criteria, but the ruckus is it's long-term, short-term. So what's your short-term goal that you want by the end of the semester? What's a reasonable thing you can definitely get? What's the long-term goal? And then the other side is who are your allies, who are your opponents, and how can you get more people on your ally box, and how can you minimize your opponents, and how can you alienate the really crazy ones that are just absolutely against you? Which isn't hard. And so you utilize all these rights. You utilize the media. If you do Board of Regents really well, and you do Kyoki-Kerr follow-up, that's enough. Administration, government officials around the world always care about what is said about them in the media. So, you know, you utilize that. You go wild on Facebook. You organize campaigns. You look at what you want to accomplish and you use it that way. And then you also gear up, okay, fall semester is going to start. What do we want? What are our goals by September, October? How do you want to do that? You know, and you start coordinating all that. And when you think of it in those ways, then you also know what to expect. You don't get down if things don't happen. You know, there's the next stage you were thinking of. You know, you're farther along than you planned. You're a little less, but we're gaining momentum. It's going to be better. And you coordinate. Student caucus. So I was chair of student caucus. Student caucus can be a great tool. You say, this is what we're facing. Can you guys support us? When we got the student vote on the Board of Regents, true story, the governor, after everyone voted for it, waited over almost the full year. He had a year to pick. He waited until 3 days before. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a campaign for the last week and make sure he appoints someone. No, because if you go out, you won't get appointed. I'm like, I'm not getting appointed anyway. We knew that. So I was like, I'm going out. So I went down. No one else could go, but everybody in Hilo, Maui were like, you go. So I just had one sign, and then the media would come like, Josh, where's everybody? I'm like, it's only one person, one student, one vote. Don't need more than that. And they'd be like, And I'm like, I can't say no one else showed up because they're all busy in class. I'm like, it's one student, one vote, this is it. And they're like, one student stands alone across from the governor's office demanding, and then of course within 2 days he appointed someone. But the point was, we knew he was going to at a certain point. We knew he already waited so long anyway. You know what you can get, and you know what you want. So you map it out. You understand. You work the media, you work the students, other students. And nothing's worse than if you get your students to call the campus here and say, I was going to transfer, but why would I when I see what goes on there? You could do the little snail thing. Don't pay. Pay everything, but don't pay your fees. Take off $1 of your fees just to prove a point. See if they're not going to process your check because it's $1 off. Have fun with that. Test the system back the other way. So, you know, I mean, you look at what you're, or $19. I'll take $19 off because I'd say I don't need the binder. Right? It'd be, I won't pay 19. So I just knock off 19, whatever everything costs. Be like, why is no one paying 19? I don't need the binder, I'm good. I got a phone. It worked really well. Paper's sort of, you know, that's back there with Facebook. I'm okay. I'm going to just use this. So, you know, it's just thinking strategically. And it's also, you also want to measure how powerful you are. Every time I organize, I always do little things to see where I'm at. So one girl hasn't come back from Burma, but I shouldn't be doing some of the work that I do, but I was in Burma doing some activism, and in Cambodia, and the government turned off all of our lights. So it turned off the temple's lights and a whole city block. So all the students were like, you can't have class tonight because they turned off the lights. And I was like, you kidding? You guys are all monks. You look great in candlelight. And they're like, you're going to come out there? It's like a dark road. I'm like, hell yeah, we're going to have class at candlelight. You look great. Everybody with candles, everybody discussing. Wonderful night. But it was like, you can do everything you want to us and we'll still meet. So you have to show the indomitable will. You can coordinate that. But this is a small town. It's not difficult. Pressure points. It's kind of easy. People eat the same places. People go to the same place all the time. People are creatures of habit. You can make life hell on anyone on this island. All the time. You can show up at Ken's when they show up at Ken's. You can show up at all the places. It's not hard. You can't do any of these towns without anybody not knowing about it. As your mayor's finding out. You know, so these are all the things that you could use to your advantage in this setting. So I would say it's not unbelievable or impossible, and I would say just to also adopt the attitude of this is what we want is what other students want, and more importantly, we're going to make sure it happens. And when you have that, that's where I got lucky. When I started student activism, I said I'm going to do these 6 things, and amazingly enough, they all happened. And then I was like, I can do anything because I just did it. So if you give students a couple of those experience, then that'll make all the difference because then they'll actually realize the power that they have. What everybody doesn't realize and what everybody doesn't know is how much power you do have. You've never been able to really exert it. So what you're really trying to do is just build that. And if you're able to build it and coordinate it, then there's really, a person in a position as advisor will be the last thing that you'll be focusing on. You'll be thinking much bigger things and better things, and I'll start demanding what things you really want to study. I'd start pushing for classes you want. I'd start making that classes are relevant to what you want to be. You know, and focus on those things. So that's where you start going. And then they're like, wasn't it a lot easier when we just got complaints about what was wrong with this one person? And then they'll start thinking of what they can do with that. So I'm gonna just show you one thing that you could do within a month, which is usually a pretty good timeline. And also nothing extra than what you're already doing. And if it does work, then you've got this nice global little recognition, plus you're connected with other students and faculty across the world. And more importantly, you might even have a couple of countries that are saying, that's unbelievable that that happens there, and what can we do about it? Or at least a scholarship to go study something else if you want. Alright, so let's see if I can pull this off. So I'll pull up this one thing we did. Alright, so there's Jocelyn from Taiwan working on the original. go 10 steps. Can we see, or we have to go dark? All right, let's get the candles going. It's going to go Cambodia style. Little Phnom Penh. Everybody safe? Feeling comfortable? Okay, sorry for filming. Ooh. All right, so here's the Universal Periodic Review. This happens every 4 years, but it's also a great strategy to apply for what you're working on. So here it is in short, simple steps. The first thing you need for almost any campaign is a one-page, smart, simple, and strategic sheet. It covers the issue, question, and recommendations. If I played, and if you're gonna do this and you're serious, you have to do mock interviews. You don't wait till Kyoki Kirk comes and you try to figure out what you're gonna say. You also need to know what you're gonna say no matter what question Kyoki asks. Because Kyoki has what he wants, and you have what you want. And you definitely are honest with him, but you also make sure you say what you want. And if you don't say it, it's not gonna be on the news, and it will say something else. So it's really important to know that. So you don't just do it then. But if you do a sheet that you're passing out to other students, but if you do a sheet, I'll help work on it at the UN level, it's what's the issue. So what is honestly the core issue with what's going on? It's accountability, it's transparency. It's that you actually receive the service for what you're paid. It's actually that you're respected. It's actually when you go there and you're trying to do the right thing, you're not disrespected and then treated poorly, and then even worse, discriminated against for doing the right thing to actually say how the system should be working. So that is in the issue. And you kind of peeled away with what's the core issue and what you're looking at. What's the question? If you're going to get one question and someone's going to ask the person who's in charge or the chancellor or the dean, I mean, you know, the administration these days, they have so many levels. It's absolutely insane. Like, that's definitely the way to go in this world if you want a job that's just unbelievable in some ways. You know, it's where it is. We can definitely change education. Like, we still have to work on that in a lot of ways. But what's the question that you really want asked? And most importantly, really where I was at before we got kicked out because the clock wasn't moving, which is a great technique, just leave the clock where it is. Like, I didn't know it was time. Is recommendations. It is beyond naming and shaming, and it's really framing and claiming what we want. What do you really want? What is your end goal? What's the long term? What's the short term? And if you make that what we want and your recommendation kind of shows the process, that would be very strong. Now here's two things that I could do with it, but more importantly, once you have that sheet, it's how you can use it here. But it's always fun to put in your press release that your issue was raised in Washington, D.C. and New York this week. Or more importantly, right before the Board of Regents meeting on the 15th in Washington, D.C., and then on the 17th in New York City. That's kind of sandwiched with the Board of Regents meeting. That's a pretty good thing. So I have to say it's a little bit of good timing for you and convenience that I'm coordinating both of those meetings. So at the UDC, David A. Clark School of Law, we will actually have a meeting where all civil society, everyone dealing with every issue in the United States regarding a human rights concern, will speak for up to 10 minutes. They will meet with embassies based in Washington, D.C., so all the countries around the world. So if you really were into this assignment, you would look up what countries care about what issues such as education, such as accountability. It's a nice little website called UPR Info. But it's pretty simple. So if you want, I'll Skype you in, or we can do FaceTime. But you can say, this is the issue, and you can practice your speech of what is the issue, the question, and the recommendation. Because for the most part, you're never really going to get more than 2 to 10 minutes to explain to people, especially students, because everybody's like, I'm busy, what's going on, what do you want, what's your next step? So I would say that is an important thing. So there's diplomacy dialogues that will take place. The other thing is, there are different people in education at the federal level that you can actually talk to as well. And no one loves to get messages from higher up, and everybody always thinks that they're the highest. So it is always fun to expose what exists at the national and the global level. Because then they're like, someone's watching me? I thought I was... So you can always show that we do have people power at every level. Here's some things that you can easily do as well, because although Facebook is hot here, let me suggest some other things. So here's one. How about doing this campaign? What's your story? What do you stand for? What should we do together? Have everybody hold up a sign. You can make it one of those boards that you just keep erasing.
Okay.
You can make it UPR USA 2015. You can make it hashtag whatever you want to call here. Could be Avenue of Accountability, whatever you're going to call it. You know, student fees, students first, or students first, whatever you want, student freedom. But you put those two hashtags on it. You have students take pictures. People love selfies. I think it's a little bit of a self-absorbed society, and it shows how sad we are that we're so lonely we have to use a stick. We don't even have a friend to take a picture of us anymore. So we've reached a low point as humanity, but if that's where we're at, that's where we're at. What can we do about it? But, you know, you got selfies for substance. And you have people hold their signs and talk about the issue. And that's easy. It's just holding a sign like, I care about education, I care about accountability, I care about, you should have a radio station, which is another human right issue. You should have all these things. All those things are what you're asking for. So you have a richer student life, that people are excited to come to school. They'll actually have more money in the university if more people come to school. It's a silly thing. The other thing that what you can do though besides that is, guess what? There's all these great websites where you can actually start petitions. So start a petition at Avaz. Start a petition at Care2 Cards. Start a petition at Credo. Start a petition at Move On. So this all of a sudden gets everyone around the world, not just Hilo, to go, oh my gosh, can you believe students here aren't getting what their fees paid for? That students here are being harassed for just asking what they should have. And then you get all these from all over. So it's a great way that your message gets out without you doing any extra work. So your what do you stand for, what shall we do together is a great campaign, but then you go through all, if you go to the White House, it's called We the People. We the People, if you get a certain number of signatures, you actually get a meeting with the Obama administration.
Wow.
So I've been fortunate to work with one group that we got the amount of signatures, then we got the phone call, and then we got the meeting. So you can even start that, and that's We the People. So it's not quite Estonia yet, or those great direct democracies, but if there's so many signatures, then that is what you can do, and then you'll actually have results. So that's simple things. Like that is one simple petition. You word the language right from your issue, question, recommendation sheet, and you throw it in there. The next one is a good one. It's a little Marvin Gaye. What's going on? What's going on, right? What's going on is easy. Use human rights language. What right is being violated? Article 26, right to education. Article 21, right to participate in our governance. Cite that. More importantly, make a short video. Everyone has a, I was just in a class today on indigenous issues in contemporary Pacific. There's now this cool app for online movie where you can actually edit everything all on your iPhone. Absolutely unbelievable. So easy. Talk to the film students. That's what you got to do. It can't just be the student government small group. I mean, I've been I think you need to get the money. They're like, oh, I guess we do. And you're like, how pathetic is that? Of course you do. You're trying to teach people to be the right people in society, and you don't have any health services, and you're charging for health. Transportation was uncle in a van that would drop us off at Kapolei. That's not transportation. That's uncle. You know, so it gets more credible as people demand stuff, but you also need to learn, like Frederick Douglass had it right. They never just give you anything. You have to demand it and organize well, and then it's amazing how quick it happens. But it is these skills that I was impressed with the meeting that I was in. But what's going on is a simple one. What right do you care about? just talking about it. What you're gonna do, that's the great one. I'm gonna ask you, Mayor, I'm gonna ask you, Department of Education, I'm gonna ask you, Chancellor. That's a great one, because everybody always wants to ask elected officials and people who are in power exactly what you think. Excuse me, what you gonna do? And then you make that video. People love saying those things. But more important, it's the final one there, what do you want? And that's what I was talking about earlier. That's the part where actually people listen to you. The most respect I ever got was when I actually told them how they should change it and gave them the alternative and explained to them why it was better for them. And then they were like, that's so reasonable, why am I not doing it? And it's not that hard, but you can easily explain because you understand it best from a student perspective. So it is that, what do we want is absolutely essential. And all those three are great video contests, and we can actually do those all the way through September when the report's actually adopted. A guide to Geneva, you don't need to know Geneva. If you want to, it's great. Come if you want to. But the point is you don't have to. You can do everything here in Hilo. You've got the technology, I'm already there, so we can coordinate. But it is a great way to put a little extra pressure. There will be on May 11th, a 3.5-hour review of the United States. There are many countries that would love to say, you know, you're the richest country in the world, yet your students are having all these complaints. You need to focus on economic, social, and cultural rights. The coolest thing is, this is the only place you can bring up economic, social, and cultural rights in the United States. Because the U.S. hasn't ratified the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Because as we know, our Senate today couldn't even name a post office if they had to. Because you need, everybody know how many votes you need to ratify a treaty? Anybody remember Schoolhouse Rock? I'm just a bill, and I'm only a bill.
Only 3/4?
You need 3/4, so it's 3/4. How many senators do we have?
100.
Oh, a little high there. So there's how many states?
50.
50. And each state gets how many senators? 2. So we got?
100.
All right, I know we're a political science group, so it's big steps. So we have 100. So 2/3 of 100 is? 66 with the line, 67. But you're not going to get today. So this is our only chance to pull up education as a human right, to talk about this and demand it. And every other country in the world is like, of course it's a human right. In a world where education is the key to a golden future, and you have all these impediments, that's an issue for anyone. So you raising issues here inside the country that says it's so exceptional is huge for everyone else in the world, because they're like, then they start going, well, we do this, why don't you do it? So instead of you fighting for fees, you would actually go where you get stipends to learn. And guess what? Holland understands. If you get a PhD, guess what? You're going to have a great job. You're going to make a certain amount of money. You're going to have more taxes being paid to you. My gosh, so better. That's why they've legalized it a long time ago. You know, they had a different approach to everything, that it makes sense. If you make college education free, in the end, you're actually going to get more revenue because everyone will actually be smarter and actually get to jobs and actually get paid and actually be able to take taxes from them. And they don't mind because they don't need to hoard their money, because they don't have to worry about health care, because that's paid for too. And they don't have to worry about their kids. And oh my God, we don't have child care. And oh my God, how are we going to pay for their college? I think the most horrible thing that we say now is when you have a baby, start saving for college. Like that's 20 years. Oh my God. Margaritas and Reubens are over. You can't even, just because you have one baby. How can that be? I'm sorry, pineapple's the new place, right?
Right.
All right, sorry, pineapple, whatever we drink there. So I mean, that's absolutely insane. Where we need to reprioritize the way this country works, and human rights is a way to think about it. Not just a way to complain, but a way to coordinate campaigns, and more importantly, enlist the global community to also agree. Because there's other conventions where we're supposed to not spend so much. Here's another thing. National Town Hall Human Rights Forum. What we'll be doing every month is I'm working with the top law schools that will actually have a monthly phone call on specific issues around the country. So after this meeting takes place on May 11th, I can promise you now, we got the most recommendations in 2010. We had 220 recommendations. That could mean we're the worst country ever to live, or that we're really well organized as civil society. It was honestly that, because we wrote over 200 of the recommendations that were delivered. So with your recommendations as well, we can do that. But we can pick. The theme of education as a human right has so many groups coming together. And one of the things we work on at the U.S. Human Rights Network, where I'm the co-chair, is impacted people speak for themselves. We live in a world where everybody thinks you have to be an expert. So there'll be something going on, and they'll be like, Josh, like what you guys are so sweet, tell us about this. I'm like, I can't tell you about that, I'm not a student here. I felt awkward, I was like, can you talk about student rights? I'm like, yeah, I've been doing that a while now, I'm out of that game. I'm not youth either, I kept getting always tapped for youth positions. I'm like, I'm out of youth finally. Students will walk into class and be like, you're not my teacher, you're too young, get out. And finally they're like, hey, it's the teacher. You're like, great. I had one woman the first week of class, like, you need to sit down. I don't know what kind of attention you need, but you need to sit down. I paid money to come here. You need to go sit down. I want a good teacher. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to get angry because I'm your professor, but I am your professor. You know, sit down. It's going to be a great semester. It's going to be good. So it's getting better now. I'm getting at a mature level. But the cool thing is you can be one of the speakers. We're going to put that together. It'll be education as a human right. And it'll be at least 3 to 5 people discussing education and human rights from all those different angles. You can definitely have the voice here about what you're experiencing. What you're experiencing is probably not the only thing. I can tell you from doing a meeting in Birmingham, Alabama, education is really bad in Alabama too. But a monthly fireside chat using Google Hangout allows us as a country once a month to discuss human rights issues. The other one right here is a great book. It's called An Idea Whose Time Has Come, or The Hungry Human Rights Recipes for a Delicious Democracy, a People's Cookbook for a Cuisine of Consciousness in Our Country. You gotta be a journalism major to pull that one off. But that's cool. We're gonna have Cornel West write a chapter on race. We're gonna have Tom Hayden talk about student empowerment. We're gonna have Medea Benjamin talking about drones. We're gonna have Elizabeth Warren talking about economic accountability. So it's this great book where everyone's writing, not a lot, because you don't read. Let's be honest, right? I'm a faculty member, you do not read. College students do not read as much. It's like, is there a YouTube on that? No one reads. It's sad, but it's totally true. No one, I love reading, but no, you have to like, it's got to be a new thing we got to start. Like, we're going to spoon and read together. Reading is fun. No one does that anymore. It's like fast, quick video. So it's a little alarming, but books are good. Marking is good. So what we're going to do, and you look at that, is short chapters, but just exactly what do we want? Because Ralph Nader knows what's wrong on this bill. He knows what chapter needs to change. But not if people are like, what the hell is Ralph doing now? Is it seatbelts again? You know? But if he has just those 2 pages, death penalty. Our country, we are an outlier. We're doing cocktails that kill people that don't even kill them the first time around. Drug companies in Europe aren't giving us the drugs anymore because we're messing it up so much because they don't agree with the death penalty. So, I mean, we do so many things in so many wrong ways. It's going to be this great book that gives you all ideas of certain campaigns of what you can work on to make the country better, but it's very much related to the issues you're interested in. One thing we're going to do this summer, and you can do it here, because, you know, there's communities here that most people don't go to. I had the idea before I went to the South, but it's the anniversary of the Freedom Riders. And when you go there, and when I went to Selma, the crazy thing is 50 years later, you don't even get reception. So imagine how brave you had to be back then when you know the Klan were waiting for you, and you don't get reception 50 years later. So there was nothing to help you down there. You were going into the most hostile territory, believing in the equality of one another and putting your life on the line. We're not going to ask you to do that much. You know, you don't have to go to the bad community. But Rights Riders is a cool thing where you're going to take the recommendations from the UPR on May 11th. We're going to translate those into simple law, so it's not like you're talking about that last petition by the student government where you're like, what is Article 21? You know, you're going to break it down to simple things, but you're going to talk to people. Guess what? Do you know the United States was reviewed? No, we're the best country in the world. Why would we be reviewed? Do you know what the results were? Not a clue. Well, here's some of them. There are, I guarantee if I have to bet, everybody loves Vegas and Hawaii, I'd say over 300. Maybe 350 if I'm really good in the next month. But we'll have that many recommendations. You can then go to people and say, what do you care about? Then if they're like, well, what does it look like? Great, there'll be a webcast link. You can actually do this in this same classroom. You can do it in the community center. You can do it at Pineapple. You can do it at a library. You can do it wherever you want, and just tell people, do you know what your rights are? I don't know. Do you know the UPR happened? I don't know. Well, let's just go over some things. And in the end, it'll be kind of like what the UN did. The UN right now is creating a whole new system that will actually even challenge economics. It's called the Sustainable Development Goals. So they're replacing, some of you might have heard of the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs. Most Americans don't know what they are. They think it's Miller Genuine Draft for dyslexic people. But the MDGs were Millennium Development Goals. SDGs sounds even worse. It sounds like you don't want to get. But it's the Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable Development Goals are going to be 17 measurements and indicators that every country is going to have to go and explain how they're living up to it. Oceans is one, climate justice is another, education of women. There's 17 of them. So that'll all change. So the exciting thing, and what we're looking at here, is a whole new direction that's definitely happening at the global level, but no one knows. So in a way, you get to get on the bus, you get to drive the bus, you can do this all around Hilo, you can do it anywhere you go this summer. So we have students all over the country becoming rights writers. We got Ben & Jerry's, I think we're going to get t-shirts. So nothing's better than a Ben & Jerry t-shirt. And go traveling around, that'll be your uniform. That's a pretty cool uniform,
Yeah,
a Ben & Jerry t-shirt. Everybody loves Ben & Jerry. We're trying to work on the flavor, it's going to be called the upper. It'll just be everything. It'll be waffle cone, caramel goo, peanut butter. That's human rights. We put it all in there as one delicious flavor of humanity there. So the rights writers, anyone can sign up for it, and there'll be a website you can sign up for. Last two things real quick. Human rights report card. How about this? You got a problem with a person, create a human rights report card. Look at what their job description is. The people who are in any job have a job title. They have a description. If it's supposed to be meeting with students, if you're only on campus 2 days a week, you're not meeting with students. If it's about how effectively you get funds so that you have an event and the events don't happen, you can grade it. You know, it can be like elementary school where it's like, good enthusiasm. You know, you can put those nice little comments on the side, but a report card. So we're actually going to do a national report card every May 11th and every September 26th. September 26th, the final report on the United States will be adopted. Then the U.S. has 4 years to realize it. So I personally do believe we could get 1 or 2 questions related to accountability, student fees, education as a human right in the United States. And it's one of those things that you could be like, I did that in 1 month of work on top of going after the issues I care about here. And more importantly, it's one extra little tool to be like, well, do you know that Netherlands made a recommendation in Geneva regarded this and specifically cited University of Hawaii? Like, the world knows what we're doing? Like, that's embarrassing. It's one of the things that you utilize. So definitely that's one thing you can do on the grade. And the last one is festivals. Freedom Follow festivals and forums are great in that you can have concerts, you can do all these things, but you really do have to do things in a new way. You can't think you're going to explain all this to folks and that you're going to be excited. Look at that, I'm on 99%. That's a good thing. So the 99% right there. I'm going to have to clear some emails probably tonight. That's what happens when you're in Hilo, you get so many emails in a day. It's like absolutely crazy. I've been trying to keep up. But
Judge, can we have a copy of those things?
Sure, how about this? You don't get this too often. I will send this to whoever wants it right now, and either you can come and just type your email, and we'll just do that, and everyone tonight that wants a copy can have a copy. How's that? That's pretty instant, right? That's no problem. So yeah, so everybody's cool. We're going to turn on the lights, so shield your eyes.
Josh, when was can you share the rights?
Rights Riders will be from May 11th through September 26th.
What is it?
It's you. It's volunteer, so anyone that wants to be a rights rider will be able to sign up, and then you'll share and talk to people about what happened at the UPR and what issues you think are important.
I was wondering if something like this existed, because we already had planned to show the movie Freedom Riders at one of the events we're trying to have.
Yeah, no, I thought of it before I went to Alabama, and then I talked to Representative John Lewis to see if he wouldn't be offended, because they were freedom riders, and what I'm talking about is a little softer.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I love it. We need to get the youth out. So he's made comic books. So he has all these new comic books called March 1, March 2.
Claudia B.
So it's a lot of things. So Rights Riders was so that anyone can do what I do. Anyone can be a teacher. And the only way you really know stuff is when you teach it. So
Right.
it's a great way to do it. And the truth is,
No, Ellie.
then you're involved and so is everyone else and
No, Ellie.
everyone can participate.
That's why
There
that.
are degrees for political science.
Sure there are.
For associates. It's interesting to me that we don't have it. And I'm wondering to have it. Because how else the students be more empowered
Right.
if they're in the dark about it.
Yes.
So that doesn't, okay, so human rights, if we can prove that rights are being violated, what happens on that scale? I mean, okay, so.
That's what anybody you want to take. You can do local county council, you can do state of Hawaii, you can do whatever you want.
It's the law or nothing, you just get it on.
Oh, it's law. Well, I mean, here's the important thing to know though. Like, we live in a society that loves litigation and suing. It's true, we do. We think if there's a law, then it's going to win. But the truth is, a lot of people's rights are violated, and a lot of people have the laws violated, and then they're still in a bad way, but lawyers are like, but it was wrong, so we can do something about it. What also human rights is about is preventing things getting that bad. So, I mean, there's laws against rape and assault, and there's brand new films coming out called Hunting Grounds, about women being attacked and assaulted on campuses across the country. So, even though there's laws against assault of women, it still happens way too often. So, I don't want it to be a law that then we can sue someone after something horrible has happened. I want to create the conditions so we prevent that as much as possible. So part of human rights is also preventative and approaching it from that perspective. So no, I mean, there's rights and there's laws and it's contract is offer, acceptance, and consideration. When you go to college, you pay a certain amount, you expect something. If I was your teacher and then I'm not there for 6 weeks, I probably wouldn't be your teacher anymore because I obviously was not living up to my end of the contract. So, on the other hand, I could joke around being like, I read every week and you don't, so what the hell, why am I even bothering? But the point is, no, we agree. In a way you can think of this is, let's have fun with human rights, okay? So if I'm teaching and you're a student and we're having class every Thursday night till 11 o'clock and the next group comes in and kicks us out, the purity group or whatever, who knows what's on Hilo these days. And if we agree that I'm like, okay, every Thursday night I will come with a reading and I'll have an hour lecture and then I'll stay for an hour to discuss. And you're like, that's great. And you're like, in return, I will read and I'll be prepared and I'm ready to discuss for an hour. In fact, you're going to have to drag us out of class. I'm like, that's great. And let's say it gets to midterm. So we got the Treaty of Knowledge. And I'll be like, maybe we can amend the treaty because I'm not feeling it. Like, I'm here every day and then Noelle's saying it's her most quiet class ever. So I'm like, maybe we need to improve. So, you know what, I got some extra time this semester, the UPR's over. Let's amend it. We're going to make it that I can come and visit anytime. And don't worry, I'm just going to come and help. I'm going to cook dinner, and then we're going to talk about the readings. Because maybe you get nervous in front of everybody else. I don't want to talk because then if you look too smart, then you're kind of lame. That kind of kicks over from high school still here, I think. We had that in Y too. You don't want to look too smart because then, oh, trying to crown nose. So, holding your own self back. No one would like that. Because you're like, oh my God, if I come over, you have to put books, all the human rights books. Hey Josh, how you doing? Look, human rights books. Oh, my videos too. I got all the good ones. Freedom Riders, Anne Frank, great movie. Oh, my music selection? Oh, Bob Marley, Bob Dylan, all the really conscious ones. You have to hide your, Usher and all that kind of stuff. So governments do the same thing. Governments don't want to be held accountable. But no one wants to really be held accountable. So what human rights is trying to do is create a system at least where there is some accountability, but more importantly, there is no system unless you know your rights. If you don't know your rights, you can't demand your rights. So the most important step is education. The second step is mobilization. And the third step is realization. If you do education, mobilization, you will have realization. Law school's okay. It's a little corporate these days, but you can get law degrees. And there's other places around the world where college is free. You can go to Germany right now and get a free master's and doctorate. Yeah, so it's looking at all those options. Of course, the ideal is why wouldn't we have a campus here where you get the degrees as high as you want? So, there's some things we have to look at. But in the current system we have, it's not appreciated. Education isn't. Unfortunately, I understand but education is seen just as an economic transaction. I pay this so that I get a piece of paper, so suppose I get a good job. No, you missed the whole point. If that's what most people are doing with college. So we have to change that in a nice way. So yeah, the Treaty of Knowledge is great. Same way that we should have other treaties, which we do have with the United States. But if the U.S. isn't held accountable because you don't know the UPR is happening, or you don't know the Convention Against Torture exists, and you don't know any of the things, then they show up, give a good speech, and go home, and no one knows. So it's like that. So you just have to know a little bit more about what's going on.
Yeah, the websites are, if I go to that, the whatever you said.
Yeah, another website is ohchr.org, Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. State Department, U.S. State, also has all the human rights issues too.
What was it again?
OHCHR, Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. It's the logo you guys use for your student union, except opposite. It's the same logo actually. It's pretty funny. I was like, oh, that's a copyright, but
Oh.
you didn't see it. It's okay. It's not the same. So did you hit send? Nope.
Is everybody on who wants to be on?
Anybody else want to be on? Can we send it? I'll wait. I see you trying. Okay. We won't send it. It's there ready. No problem. Okay. So, no, I mean, I'd say the most important thing is you're already organized. You're doing a good job. I was able to hear all the things that you're focusing on. Bless you. It's, you hear my sneezes. I stop UN meetings. Like people just, how was that? Hopefully it won't happen tonight, because especially in this room, too sonic. Boom, boom. But, you know, it's figuring out what you really want. I think the issue, question, recommendation sheet that I'm saying you can use for this is perfect what you need here. So it's not distracting you, it's focusing you. And then it is a great tool to coordinate for what you need to do next. And then you move and promote and go from there. So no, I mean, yeah, no, law is obviously valuable. The antitrust does great things with law. It also depends on what you want to work on. You could be today you can actually be a blogger and have your own website and do writing plus short videos, and everybody would watch it in Hilo. You could go instant viral sensation. I'm pretty sure I was like, let's create a little website that everybody watches every day in Hilo. It's not that hard, but oh my God, you see that? We gotta go. Boom. So it's small is good in a lot of ways. It could be substantive. Any other points since it's 9 o'clock? I'm doing pretty good. I battled through a burrito, so I'm building what do you call it? What's that? Keanu doesn't go to Geneva as much. He goes to The Hague. So, all valuable spaces. I mean, if you're talking sovereignty, there's so many things that have been wrong for so long over centuries that it's great to use multiple avenues for advocacy, and you got to work on all that.
Nothing's happening. And that's why I'm just wondering what is human rights, because, you know.
Oh no, there's lots of people doing that that's been quite effective. A lot of people have gained good things from that. It's not the only one though. Yes?
I just thought I'd speak up, I guess. Thank you for coming out here and sharing experience as far as human rights. I'm the oldest student living in the dorms right now over here at UH.
Okay. That could be a movie. We can turn that into a fun comedy. You know what I mean? You can have fun. I mean, do you see all your residence advisors? You talk to them? Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'll speak quite candidly.
Yeah.
I think I didn't want to compare mainland universities to this.
Sure.
But it's a slap in the face to academic integrity and academic success, where there's only a 36.6 graduation rate after 6 years here, and more emphasis is placed on extracurricular activities as opposed to academic-oriented events.
Yeah.
UCSB right now, Berkeley, UCLA, my alma mater, 24/7 right now. Libraries. Right now they're closed. 4 o'clock. They're closed tomorrow. I've since become a monitor. I lobbied. I went to use people. I'm a monitor 5 days a week from 9 p.m. to 6 in the morning. And I have a little small following of people. But there's a lot of other things. If I may say, 90+% of the administrators and professors as well, and everyone, are of two cultures. which are not African American, not Native American, or Mexican American, or Polynesian descent. There are two cultures, and I questioned that, and I pondered that. And then housing, it's funny. And then, not to go on a tangent, but Sodexo, 100% monopolization of all the food. I sold my car to come here. Retired at 49. So I figured I'd get my BA, because I dropped out 3 years ago to raise 4 kids. But it's very disenchanting being, I tried to look at the bright side. It's not, I still, even though I'm not from here, I relate, My people have since become empowered, as you know, in the mainland, California. But I see that they pacify the people that have been here for generations. To voice our opinions, as far as mobilization, I was in the Brown Berets in the Chicano movement, 1970 to 72. I was president of MECHA. Right now, to this day, I keep going. How many departments are established because of martyrs like I? What I'm getting to, I hope that the people here collectively unite and do something, and empower in numbers. I went to the Board of Regents. I'm going to have to do that with the. I figured there is a process here, as far as to get the funding, hopefully, to extend library hours. But I found out that the money comes from the state, so might as well go to the Board of Regents. So I'm going to get my ducks in a row. I'm doing this on behalf of the people, and I just might go to Germany because I don't want to pay for. I want my master's as well.
Sure.
So I almost left back to the mainland. Oh, I fit in with the culture. Beautiful. And I just see the biasness. The teachers. I'm used to people. I won Outstanding Student of the Year in Ethnic Studies. It's a slap in the face over here. I'll just be open.
Yeah.
I won't say who, but a professor, history professor, told me that Chicano studies and ethnic studies is not part of U.S. history, and that's what I'm specializing in, which is a lie.
Wow.
Yes.
And that's 2015, right? Or 2014, is that recent?
Just recent. I am a member of 2 honor societies. One in history, Phi Alpha Theta and Phi Theta Kappa. I challenge I'm a revisionist, amateur revisionist historian. And I challenge, not in a bad way, but I've seen the biasness here. I feel like I'm back in the 60s. What I felt in the 60s when they put us in segregated us, they put us in the back of the classroom. I can keep going. I don't play no victim. I don't play a victim. But I feel like I'm 40 years behind when I come here. I really do. I feel like just getting some picket signs right now, just going out there and let's do it.
There's people on the TMT line.
A lot of people don't want to. A lot of people do not want to.
I'm with you.
But
with you.
but we're
We're
actually
with you.
planning
We're with
one,
you.
right, on what date?
We're
Was it
planning
the
one on
14th?
April 14th and April 16th.
So you don't have to hold this down by yourself.
Yeah.
Anything against the people that are part of the hegemonic forces, not just in this microcosm, but all the way through government level. If you know the 2 cultures there are 2 cultures. And now, like I said, to what I aforementioned, very few, if any, Polynesian descent. Or no African Americans, just like here. Professors, administrators, everyone I deal with, I know what I'm dealing with. And they work in cahoots, just like it is with other cultures in the mainland. I don't know. I just thought I'd
Absolutely.
share what I feel.
Yeah, the experience. No, and what you're talking about isn't, I don't think anyone's surprised by that, right?
I
It's
have
not
one
like,
question.
yeah.
I'm going to be paying for my, since I can't afford to pay for a summer class, but I'm going to pay the $1,100 to stay over 3 months, for the duration of the summer here. well, who can I see, or what can I, because I'm gonna start knocking on doors and speaking with people to see if I can get that one class, because I need it to graduate next year. What can I do? Who can I see?
What class is it?
It's pretty much just a history class.
All right, well, that's what, the only reason I'm being specific is, I got a phone call a month and a half ago that was like, Josh, will you teach Global Futures? And I was like, love to next semester, it's one of my favorite classes. And they go, oh, no, it's an intensive course in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, I'm a little busy, like I'm doing some global work, I don't have time. And then in the end, I was like, well, what's this situation? They're like, yeah, we didn't time it, we didn't plan it, we really need someone to teach it, certain people want to graduate. So I was like, let me figure out. So I flew back 3 times just to teach that class, and we're having class tomorrow on Good Friday. It's going to be a great Friday. We're going to have class down by Iolani Palace and talk about all the issues and actually do a protest with Lynn Woolsey, a congresswoman, about money and politics. So you just got to get the right teacher to be willing to teach it. So find a history teacher and look what's going on and try that. Because it's actually, like with all this political work, it's people in the right places and it's coalition building. So I mean, I knew 2 students who were like, I really need that class, Josh, and they called me over the weekend. I know you got a phone call, please think about it because it's our class. And I was like, yeah, we'll make it work, So I mean, there's good people, there's good teachers, and it's finding the right people, and there's also excellent students as well that have the same heart and want to make things work as well. And it all depends on what you feel is your best approach to raise the issue, but just go with what you feel is right.
And I
So
would
is that-
suggest that you give us your information so we can get a hold of you, so that when we're clear about what time things will be actually protesting on the 14th, that we could communicate with you. And if you could bring a lot of those students from the dorms.
At this moment, I'm out of action. On the web, I'm an activist. I've been interrogated by the FBI for justice. So I'm just under the radar right now. I just wanted to voice a few things that I'm concerned. And not that I don't think that I offended. I just wanted to address these issues.
No, I don't think anything's negative. I mean, I was like, it's good that you're able to speak. That's, like, honestly, all the human rights are connected. The most simple thing is, freedom of thought is great. But if we do freedom of thought, it's more like a Buddhist tranquil moment here. And then freedom of speech, we share. And then the whole point that everyone's talking about is after freedom of thought, freedom of speech, it's freedom to assemble. And then it's to improve the institutions that they reflect your values.
I just wanted to close with this. Very extremely conservative administration. They try to sweep a lot of things under the rug, make it look like there's a lower spirit. Boy, is my perspective wrong, It was when I came here. It's not what I shouldn't, expectations are premeditated resentments. Cognitive resentment. But I'm since can live with it now. That's basically it. Oh, by the way, it was 2 semesters ago, there was a group of students in a club, I guess, they were passing out constitutions, those booklets.
That's, I got
They
the
won the-
UHH one right here, but yeah.
Yeah, and there was someone that said, that didn't like it and told me they shouldn't be doing it. And then this group of students won the case, and they got some money out of it. That's how conservative this place is. They don't want the students to speak up.
Right.
And I noticed it's a very passive, aggressive, unlike the mainland, very passive, aggressive social construct here. Either or. Yes, they'll stab you in the back, get all nice and everything, and then all of a sudden, boom. Oh, I'm from LA, I'm from Venice Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I land there frequently, in between meetings.
But I love the culture. I fit right in, chaka and everything, because where I come from. They took our land as well, and all this stuff I can go on, everything.
The sugar plantations between the Japanese, the American owners, the Hawaiians being at the bottom of that list. I noticed that I'm from Oahu, and when I came to over here, Hilo, it's a very different, it's
laying of the wrong white crowd, depending on your perspective. So, you know, New Zealand, Aotearoa is a pretty cool place, and that's where Gary came from, and he's of the right cloud in a good way, and, you know, he married and settled in Waianae side, and
Yes.
Ma'o's great. If you want to have fun, Ma'o's trying to create a new farm over though on North Shore, and they're having issues because you can't bring the Ma'o model to North Shore because their culture is unique too. So they're doing what has to be done instead of just coming in and doing something. What do you want? What do you want to grow? What's your community? What's your culture? So now Ma'o isn't just expanding like McDonald's does everywhere, but talking with the people on North Shore about what do they want to grow, how do they want to grow it, how does it fit with what people on North Shore want to go to college for, and all those things. So, and it's a good model because West Oahu campus works with them, and you get scholarships to go to school to be a farmer and all those things. So you could look at those models here. You do have enough land here.
I can add that. You know, 21.5% of unemployment, you know, in
Waianae. Yep.
And then 38.9% of children under 5 living in poverty. You know, not, you know, like 45 miles away, you have Waianae from, what do you call it, Waikiki, with tents. You know, there are tents, people live in
I was
tents.
going to say,
The Hawaiian people, I almost cried. I actually cried a couple times when I was writing my paper. You know,
No.
that's my gift, writing.
You're crying about where I grew up. Everyone I grew up with either was in prison or military. And the only difference between
Prison
prison
industrial
and
complex.
PhD is your passion.
I am surprised I'm
So-
sitting here for what, I mean, I can tell you what had happened to me, and my father, and my grandfather, and my brother, and my friends, and my uncles and relatives, you know, interrogated, profiled, welcome to America.
Yeah.
In my own land, they took from me. They took.
America's great at that, by the way.
Yes.
When you have historical
Which is
amnesia as a
probably-
people, it's pretty easy to perpetuate things.
Me too.
Which is now Kamehameha Schools and Naniko Pono's on the other side of the street. So, Justin,
TPP?
TPP? We talked about that a little bit. You want to talk more about it?
Yeah,
Sure.
That's a hot topic, babe.
Right. So TPP is good. It wasn't the toilet paper kind of thing. It was. To me, it's an easy example of the problem and why we need to work at the global level. Because they're making laws, and it's global corporations, so that they can make sure that the world is theirs and they can move wherever they want and do a race to the bottom. And they're fortunate enough to be able to provide enough political donations, and the average amount a political candidate needs to raise to still get in the House at the national level is $5,000 a day. So every day you're in the House of Representatives for those 2 years, you need to raise $5,000, or you're not going to get reelected. So it's not hard for a corporation to figure out what you need and who you have to talk to, because they'll come to you. So it goes into the issue of Citizens United. TPP symbolizes the interconnectedness of all the issues and what we have to overcome. It also is an example of how global is absolutely crucial, because at one point, 2015 is a crucial year. 2015 is the year for one, the Sustainable Development Goals, because it challenges the economy in new ways. But two, in Paris in December, they're going to make the Paris Protocol to reduce carbon. And every country will supposedly sign a binding treaty and ratify that how much carbon they'll use. That is huge, because oil companies already have planned enough exploration to go way above 4 degrees, which means it's apocalyptic for everyone. So the TPP is one instrument, and ironically enough, it'll be worked through as well through the WTO. So it allows corporations to challenge states who actually live up to their environmental responsibilities that their countries ask them to. So the most interesting part about the TPP is it's prospective profits. Not even profits you're really going to get, but you thought you could earn, that you could sue for if a country such as Germany would say, we're already up to 30% renewables with solar. And Germany sucks. I mean, they have a good Oktoberfest, wonderful people, but there's no sun, and they have more solar than we do.
Wow.
It is mandated you have to put solar panels on your house when you build a house. So they're building the infrastructure and doing the right things, but then the point is, if someone had put a coal plant and Germany said no, then with TPP, as a corporation, you could sue and supposedly win and have the country, the community that says they don't want you would have to pay for that. So one of the things we're working on with TPP is they're all in Geneva. So the cool thing is when you're in Geneva, you actually know where everything's at. Before then, I have to admit, my first time in Geneva, I was a student activist. I only put on the Aloha shirts right before meetings. Like I never had. I had a Aloha shirt in the back and be like, oh, no, we got the meeting. You know, I walk into the Regents meeting, I do, and I'm great. And then I was like, same thing in Europe. I'm like, oh, this is Geneva, this is the UN. It's just like state capital. It's just like Regents meetings, room, decision makers, people in, how do we coordinate? It's nothing different. You don't get intimidated by it. So the WTO is right on the shores of Lake Geneva. The High Commissioner for Human Rights is right there. The environmental building is right there. They're all there. So now, finally, human rights is putting pressure on everything that trade is not operating in its own. It can't do that. Trade is being now challenged by International Labor Organization, which is the oldest. It's been there since the League of Nations, even before the UN. The Framework Convention on Climate Change, all the scientists going, you cannot, because look at the results. And then the High Commissioner for Human Rights is actually doing things, and they have a new forum on business and human rights, where they're actually doing a legally binding treaty on corporations. So it's taken way too long, but it's interesting to see finally everyone's putting it all together. And I mean, the WTO is right there, so we have fun. Like we did a little protest where we landed at the WTO and discovered it and did things, you know, so it's a nice little yellow boat that lands there. So there's all kinds of things that are being done. And it's finally all sort of coming together. It's 2015, it's about time. But the ironic, crazy thing is that it even is still happening under no matter what administration we have. So I mean, if we go back, we were just at Rubens, like you've got no pictures of Subcomandante Marcos in 1994. 1994, you know, the Zapatistas took over towns with guns, not real guns, wooden guns painted. So everybody was partying the tequila, the champagne on New Year's Eve. They woke up and they were like, we own this town. And they're like, oh my gosh, they took over. The word is the weapon. They used nonviolence. The whole point was the beauty of the people, that culture is more important than commodities. And that was the message from 1994. And that was through NAFTA and unfortunately a Democratic president who's revered in many ways now. So Obama pushing through TPP, it's not new, unfortunately. It's a perpetuation of what we unfortunately have two political parties who get funded in many of the same ways. And I wish we had a multitude of parties like South Africa. I wish we had parties like in Germany. I wish we had, one of the things I thought about recently in life, just because there's so many things we could do, for you on campus, I'd run a divestment campaign on fossil fuels. If they think it's bad that you're upset about student government, tell them you want to divest out of fossil fuels. Then they'll be like, okay, we'll get you an advisor. Just drop the fossil fuels. You know, I have a couple of things you want to push. Like, so I mean, pick your issue. Do the fossil fuel divestment campaign. Figure out what you want, and get a whole thing going. I mean, there's enough issues on this campus. There's enough issue on every campus. And the truth is, when you get involved and you do the things, you actually, I would say, actually do better in school. You actually, because you see the links, you see it's not just an exam, it's not mental masturbation with no result. You're like, it's an intellectual intercourse at a supreme level where you understand why you're on this planet. So I'd say it's very worthwhile.
Jason, how do you guys doing?
I gotta get you on.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
Yeah, if everyone wants to add their email, and then my email is simple, like I said, it's just